Thank you for tuning in to today's beginning of a new series. I'm not quite sure what to call it other than a window into my story on my path to where I have found myself today. And the goal is to help other individuals out there that are sensitive, highly sensitive, intuitive, aware, know that they're not alone, know that this feeling of isolation is an illusion, that they don't have to feed, and they don't have to feel like they have to hide, because there are people out there like us. And I've been guided for some time to share this, and I've had my reservations about it because I am very protective of myself and my privacy, as I'm sure you can all understand and relate to. So I guess that I could start from the beginning, but if this is something you're interested in hearing more of, if you have questions, if you have specific, you know, curiosities, questions, I don't know, if you want to know something about my path, feel free to ask in the comments below. Give me a thumbs up if you would like to hear more content like this. So, with the specific focus on my difference, my highly sensitive experience from, being a child till now. Wow. So, a lot of people that are highly sensitive, you'll find that they have trauma in their childhoods. And I mean, really, like who doesn't have something? And if they tell you they don't have something, then they just don't want to share it with you, and that's fine. That's fine. But, I'm from kind of a middle of nowhere part of the upper Midwest, and it was definitely challenging being aware of things like I am when I'm surrounded by such close-minded, narrow-minded, rigid, oppressive, judgmental concepts in social interaction. So I'll probably start more from my experience of school. So I knew quite a bit of my peers from my graduating class since I was a kindergartner. So I knew them very well. Um, I learned that my memory was just insanely good, uh, because apparently I would remember things that had happened years ago that a peer had done or something, and they would have totally forgotten about it. Like it wasn't even part of, they couldn't recall it at all. But I think because I was more aware, I would feel their emotions as well as my own. So it was more likely to be burned into my memory because of that emotion, which there is science to back that. So I felt that because I knew that what they were doing was not right, they knew that what they were doing was not right, but they chose to do it anyway, which meant they were in a lot of pain. A lot of pain. And I looked at my peers and I saw their wounding, their scars, their traumas that were happening to them. I didn't necessarily know the specifics, but for example, it'd be like a busy high school hallway, and two boys suddenly start fighting, and one of them is just a little over the top to the point of cruelty. So it's a bullying thing now. It's not just one person defending themselves. and the other person going, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. It became the defender becoming the attacker, becoming aggressive. So I knew that this was modeled somewhere because it wasn't modeled in the school. So I knew that this was something that they probably dealt with every day. And all of that, and all those people that they could have looked to in that room, they looked right at me. And I didn't say anything. I didn't consciously move. But they saw in me something that made them realize what they looked like. And they didn't like how they were being perceived. They didn't like realizing where they had gone to. And in that moment, there was a healing that occurred for them. In that moment, they realized, I can become this person who's made me feel the way I just made her feel, and I'm not going to let that happen. But a teenager processing that is a lot. So, me now, this person has all those mixed feelings about themselves that they're projecting onto me energetically. And all these kids around them are now like a little scared of them. So if they're going to project onto me, then all these other kids are going to project onto me as well. So it was a lot to handle. And I understood it. I saw it for what it was, but I really didn't feel I could do much about it other than just try to get through my day. Because they don't teach you how to navigate having awarenesses like that. Because out of all of the kids in that space, all of the other students, they looked to me. I don't know why, but my peers did that on a pretty regular basis. They would come to me for answers. They would come to me for insights. And sometimes they were really chill about it. They would actually respect me for it because I never shared what they shared with me. But sometimes they were so hurt that they wanted to make sure that I knew there'd be consequences if I did share their vulnerability. So I would be bullied by them and whomever they could recruit to get on the bandwagon because nobody wants to be the focus of negative attention. So they'll join in so they don't become the focus. And I knew all of this. I knew all of this. It was very difficult. And I loved the library. I loved books. My studies, I would do what was required of me. If I found myself really interested in something, I would really pursue it. But it was rare that something would really interest me. So I would always hear from the teachers through my parents that if I really applied myself, I did what was required. I, I had a lot going on that I didn't share. I had a very active inner world because I was processing what was going on with others as well as myself. And I was being a child and I was making mistakes and I wasn't perfect and I was learning from them. So if you wanted to go into a specific situation that it kind of came about, there was a time where this was just really hard for me. It was a lot that I was going through, and I found it kind of peaceful to sit in quiet when the rest of the students would, go to like the day of the week that they wanted us to go to church, if, whichever denomination, the the class would be gone for half the day doing, whatever they would do at their prospective churches. And I didn't, I stopped going because I really like to just be alone. I felt that my energy could expand a bit easier. I could be more reflective. I could find that calm. It was very nice. It was a nice change to not have all of that chaos bombarding me and still trying to have an awareness of my own. In retrospect, I'm aware of that now. I just sit in color, you know. It was nice. It was like creatively, you know, that I was tuning in. I think I was tuning in because art is a form of channeling. Definitely, you lose yourself to the flow when you're creating, even if it is a stick figure that ends up on mom and dad's fridge. So I had the teacher come to me one day, and she's like, "Well, you know, they're all waiting for you over at the church." And I'm like, "What? But I don't go." She's like, "No, they're waiting on you. You really need to go." And this was because they were doing some kind of an intervention. The adults felt I was being bullied, so a fair amount of the students in my grade were there, and you know, they had a couple girls that had decided through process of elimination with the adults that they were the motivators, if you will, the instigators of the bullying. And they were doing that whole, oh, I'm cute, I apologize, she's going to forgive me, I'm such a good person. And then they'll just sit down and act like everything's fine. And then they'll continue doing what they were doing the whole time because I'd seen it, where they'd been called out by an adult and things were good for a little bit because they felt better. And then they just went right back to it when something made them unhappy. I would become the target. So, you know, since they were being so aggressive about the intervention thing, I was like, all right, well, do I get to speak now? Because I don't feel like just accepting this fake apology right now, because this is fake. This is superficial. This is not genuine. If you're going to interrupt my world like you're interrupting it right now, I'm going to put my 2 cents in. And I did. And what was learned was they all thought that my world had no chaos, that I had nothing I was struggling with because I apparently appeared like I wasn't troubled. So they resented me for that. And, you know, I used basic logic for them. I'm like, do you think X, Y, and Z would be easy? These are all things you all know. Why would you think that would be easy? Would you like to experience this? You know, like these basic questions of logic. And, you know, at the end, they really did honestly ask me for my forgiveness. And because they were genuine, I gave it. But I wanted them to understand the pain that they were causing me when they didn't even know how much pain I was already in. I wanted them to. I really think it was a lesson in empathy. It was a healing moment for the whole group. It really was, because I was raised by a mother who taught empathy. Because my father's side, my genetic father's side, they're very brilliant, but socially oblivious. Morals, ethics, consideration of another person's feelings when you do X, Y, or Z. Certain things just did not even occur to them. And already being highly sensitive and more intuitive like my mother, her teaching me these things only helped drive home a skill that I was already born with, a sensitivity I already had, but it helped me put a logic to it. And I'm very grateful to her for that. So it's a teaching moment for them. I taught them empathy, one of the hopefully a turning point for them in realizing how much of an impact you can have on another person when you don't even know what they're going through. Don't assume you know them, because more than likely their reality is not something they're sharing with you. If they seem fine, let them have that. Let them have that. So, and I'm going to be humble about it. I was a teenager. I was a teenager. I wasn't, a grown adult, having overcome some things, and I would probably handle it a little different, but I trust that it was the way it was meant to be handled, and that was, I took it one step further, and I let them know that I could be like them. I could share. I could capitalize on their vulnerabilities that I see using basic logic and observation. I could, but I choose not to. And I shared that because I wanted them to understand that they had a choice and they had been choosing wrong. Because I have a choice and I was not choosing to become like them. I was not choosing to hurt them because I could, because it made me feel better, because then someone else was hurting too. And which is like a basic psychology thing that I understood then, even though I had never had a psychology course or really understood exactly what it meant. A lot of basic human interaction you don't learn in a book or study in a classroom. You learn it by living life and interacting with other people. So, that was pretty profound. um, and I don't think that many people will have had experiences like that. So, if I were you and you had, I would invite you, if you feel you have unfinished business like that, to put yourself in the position where, what if that were you? What if? What if there was an intervention that, you know, adults, or, if you're going to put it in that perspective and put yourself back in that inner child aspect, facilitated, kept the boundaries, kept the rules, made it safe, right? Held everybody accountable to color within those lines, those boundaries. What would you say to those that bullied you if they were to be apologizing? Because they'll tell you something. They missed the one that blended in, the one that really everybody was the most scared of, because she was the most cruel, because the adults saw her as a good kid. She wasn't there. I could do this exercise myself. What would I say to her? How would I teach her empathy? How would I demonstrate empathy? Would she actually apologize? And if she did, and it were heartfelt, what would it possibly sound like? What would the words be that she could possibly speak? There's healing to be had even now, to just visualize that exercise, to be had within you, because these hurts, you carry them with you and they affect you still. And that's because you're aware of these things. As I said, I thought it was basic logic and observing how people interacted. But none of them had a clue that I was going through things. So they were not observing the same things I was. I didn't know I was different. But I knew then that I was, for sure, observing and aware of things nobody else seemed to be aware of or notice. So, if this has been your experience, even remotely close, there's anything that you feel any kind of synchronicity sync with, know that you're not alone. And even though I may not know you in person, you're not alone. There's others out there like us. And, I'm sure I could speak about even more things and more things, but I want to know what you guys want to hear about. I want to know what questions you have, and I will do my best to answer. And I will be honest with you if I don't have the answer. And that's a respect for my path and your path, and allowing divine to work, the in between on that. It's respect. So the divine within me honors the divine within you. Namaste.